Hello, and welcome to part 3 of this tutorial series about how to make a Japanese dojo in Blender. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add all the wooden pieces that make up the structure of the dojo. Now, without further ado, let's open the previous project and start from where we left. Okay, let's start by selecting all the doors. Once selected, move them into the doors collection. Duplicate this wood column and move it at the center of the scene. Rotate it 90 degrees along the x-axis. Switch to Material Preview in the viewport to see how the wood texture is mapped into the column. Everything looks fine. Now let's move the column to the left side of the dojo and place it at the top of the doors. Let's increase its size along the y-axis, like so. Make it so that it matches the distance to the corner column. Duplicate and rotate it 90 degrees. Make sure it reaches the corners of the dojo. Duplicate it again and rotate 90 degrees. Place it on the right. Now duplicate this column and rotate it 90 degrees along the y-axis. In edit mode, scale it down and move the mesh to the center. Move it up a bit. Scale it up along the z-axis. We are basically doing this wood piece with this specific shape. Shorten it as it has to stay between the left and right columns. Like so. Also make it thinner. With Ctrl R, add 2 loop cuts and scale them along the x-axis. Switch to face selection and select these 2 faces. Now extrude them down by pressing E. Select these vertices and scale them along the x-axis to better make the shape of the wood piece we want to replicate. Let's add a bevel modifier and set the amount value to 0.01 meters. Duplicate the wooden piece to the right with Alt-D, then duplicate it to the left. Scale it down along the x-axis until all 3 are between the vertical columns. Slightly move them here and there so that they are equidistant from each other. Like that. Duplicate the wooden piece, this time using Shift-D as we want the mesh to be disconnected from the other 3. Rotate and move it to the side. Here. After placing it at the center, enter Edit mode and move this part to the right and this part to the left. Also move these vertices toward the center. This looks better. Alright, now duplicate and move it to cover the right side of the dojo. Do the same for the left side of the dojo. Duplicate and rotate the wooden piece by 180 degrees. Then place it to the left. Like that. Duplicate this column and center it. Then rotate by 90 degrees. Let's add a bevel modifier. Then scale it along the Z and Y axes. Now select these vertices and move them back to make it smaller. Now let's add an array modifier. Set the X offset to 0 and increase the Y offset a bit. Also increase the count number. Move it to the left side of the dojo and then to the top. Edit the size like this. Make it touch the left column. Now select these vertices and move them toward the right. Like so. Let's duplicate this array and move it to the right side of the dojo. Alright, now duplicate and rotate. Then place this array at the top. We have to decrease the count to make it fit. Also reduce the offset. There we go. It's starting to have structure. Now duplicate this array, and from the top view rotate it 90 degrees. Let's reduce the count value to 2. Enter edit mode. Select these vertices and move them up. Till here. Let me tweak it up a bit. Like that. And now duplicate and move it to the right side of the dojo. Lastly, duplicate and rotate it. Move it to the top part. And of course, reduce the length. There we go. It's looking pretty neat. Now let's add some more horizontal columns to the structure. To do so, duplicate and rotate this column. Move it to the same position of this column. Select these vertices and decrease its length. Then move up. Now duplicate and place it at the corner of the dojo. Let's place it so that it touches both vertical columns. Now that the object is rotated, however, makes it difficult for us to properly scale. So, in edit mode, select these vertices and change the transformation orientation from global to local. Then move along the z-axis, which in this case is not the global z-axis. Switch back to global and rotate it so that it touches the column. Duplicate and move it to the right part of the dojo. Rotate it appropriately. Also duplicate this wooden piece. Now let's copy this column and move it closer. We are gonna make this structure here and here. Copy this column here and here. Let's move them a bit more up. Following the reference, let's put them slightly higher. Alright, now let's move it to the right and also along the y-axis so we can see the separation between wooden columns. Enter Edit mode and move the right vertices to the left until they touch the vertical column. Switch to top view and duplicate the column. Also rotate 90 degrees so we can place it in the left side of the dojo. In Edit mode, increase its length by moving these vertices, then duplicate it to the other side of the dojo. Delete the upper column, then slightly increase the size along the z-axis of all three columns. Duplicate and move them to the top. Do the same for this top column, delete it and duplicate the other three to the top. Now if we give a look at the reference render, we can see a grid of columns at the top ceiling of the dojo. To make them, let's duplicate this column and add an array modifier. Change the X offset and increase the count value, like so. Refine the column a bit. Now in object mode, duplicate and rotate it 90 degrees. Then decrease the offset value. Let's also make it thinner. Like that, move it slightly up. Now select the wall object and open a shader editor area on the left. We are going to make a plaster material. Make sure you have selected the wall material slot. For the base color, choose a darkish yellow one. Now add an object coordinates node, then connect it to a noise texture. Switch to material preview to check the material changes we are making. Change the noise parameters so that it resembles plaster. Multiply by a low number. Then connect it to a bump node. Set the distance to 1. Let's also increase roughness and the roughness of the diffuse component of the principled node. And here we go. Thank you for following me through to the end of this video. See you in the next one. Have fun!